Jeff Okudah was basically put into the worst position imaginable when he joined the Detroit Lions. I mean, for one thing, just being forced to play for Matt Patricia, that's not great when you're a corner. It seems like it's a very difficult scheme to play because it's not a very good one, quite frankly. But there were also things like having to go up against Davante Adams in his first career start, basically being on an island. That's just completely unfair. So let's talk about the situation and also talk about himself, because just because you're in a bad situation doesn't necessarily mean that none of it is your fault. So let's start off with a few positives, and then we are going to get into some negatives because there are some negatives. So this is a positive, going up one-on-one against, this is Marquez Valdes-Scantling this time. He did spend a majority of his snaps against Adams in this game, but now against MVS, and it's going to be a deeper route. So this is kind of maybe your first test for Jeff Okudah in his season, because this was the first game. Will you get beat against a fast receiver? Because the reality is, for Okudah, he ran a 4.8 40-yard dash, which is below the 4.5 threshold, which is what you basically have to get, but it's still on the slower side for like a top-end draft pick corner. Typically, you want someone who runs a little bit quicker, so can he keep up, basically? As you see here, he is going to be able to keep up with Marquez Valdes-Scantling pretty well until there's safety help over the top. So that was, I would say, a good job by him. MVS ran a sub 4.4 40-yard dash, so that's, pretty impressive to keep up with, and I would say that that's a good play. Also worth mentioning, though, Valdes-Scantling didn't really try any extra moves. It was very basic, a very basic route, but still, I would say good job by Okudah. And there were some plays like this. This is going to be a really good one. So on this play, he is going to be on an island with Davante Adams because, that's what you do when you have a rookie corner, is you put them against one of the best receivers in football and don't give them any help. That's what you're supposed to do. That's what everyone says. And keep in mind, he didn't have any preseason either, so it's not like he was just owning guys in the preseason. Maybe he was doing great in practice, I don't know. But as you see, what's going to happen on this play is you see the route, but really watch Okudah's hands on this play, specifically his left hand. As you see, he is going to be able to sort of use that hand to just slow things down a little bit. I thought he used his hands very well. Sometimes it even verged on, like, is that a penalty? But I thought he did a good job of, always basically going right up to the line, but not crossing the line and not doing what's going to actually get a penalty too often. So I thought he used his hands very effectively for a young player. That was promising to me. And like on this play, this is going to be a running play, and I thought that his run defense as a whole was very good. I thought that, again, for a run defense for a corner, that's not exactly the #1 thing people care about, but it is a nice feature, and it is a part of football, so having a corner who can stop the run, you can pay attention to it. On this play, he is the closest unblocked man, and watch what he's gonna do here. As you see, gap clears out, and look at how he is able to run over, and he almost jumps like a lion, pun intended, and he's able to make that tackle. So again, really good play, very good run defender. That is something that is a huge positive in his game. There are some negatives, though, so let's talk about those negatives. So there are some things like this, and basically what I'm looking for in the negatives are not plays where he was just completely put out of position by a scheme. Even situations where he was maybe put in a tough spot, I still want to pay attention to. So, like on this play, he is going up a one-on-one against Davante Adams right here, and watch what's going to happen. Right when this play starts, you notice how, Adams gets to the inside very well, not a lot of contact at the line. That's maybe something I would potentially like to see Okudah do more, but at the same time, when you're not the fastest corner, it's kind of hard to do that too much because there's the threat of getting beat deep. But anyways, Adams gets to the inside, and this is kind of a little bit of where that speed comes into play, where as a receiver, if you get a step on Okudah, you have a much better chance to extend that for a long time, whereas if you get a step on a faster corner, they can close the gap pretty quickly. But also, Adams cuts really well, so Okudah isn't really able to keep up and kind of loses his footing a little. Again, so he can't cut as well as Davante Adams. It's not the end of the world. That is a very difficult thing for someone to do, but also I do think it is a little bit worth mentioning that, like, Davante Adams, at a certain point, you're going to hope that Okudah can cut as well as Davante Adams. Since Davante Adams is the best receiver for the best team in your division, you would like to have a guy who can, cut as well as him. Okudah doesn't appear to be there. Maybe he can get there, but, again, how well is he going to develop that further into his career, I just don't know. And then there's something like this. To me, this is the biggest concern, I would say, is that we talked about his speed and we talked about how he can kind of keep up with some faster receivers, but really the only way he's going to keep up is if the receiver he's trying to cover just doesn't make too many moves. If Okudah gets fooled even slightly, he's just in a much more difficult situation because he is a little bit slower than some of these other corners, and this is something that could potentially be concerning, not just in terms of is it concerning for 1 year, because obviously we all know he wasn't good as a rookie. The question is, can he improve upon this stuff? And the answer is maybe not, because watch what's going to happen with this move. Like, as you see, Okudah keeps up fine at the beginning, but once there's that little move, that creates a lot of separation. It wasn't a perfectly accurate throw, and there was safety help over the top, but still, he gave up that separation, and that's a good example of kind of some things you can be concerned about with Okudah, is the fact that he can't give up that separation just because he's not as quick. And you see a lot of first-round busts tend to be guys with slower 40 times because they don't get burned in college the way you can get burned that way in the NFL. Like, this one's going to be another one. We'll go to the Carolina game now, and this is another perfect example where, once again, it's going to be a go route. He's on the top of the screen. And what's going to happen this time is it's not going to be a move, but it's really just going to be watch how quick the receiver goes, and that's going to cause Okudah to be a little, like, sort of a half step slow. Like, watch. So the receiver gets off that, great first step, goes quickly, and Okudah just can't keep up. There's no way to coach that out of someone unless you're just going to play like 7 yards off, but that's not ideal either because, of course, then you can have a situation where someone can just throw underneath you constantly. It's not to say that a slower corner can't be effective, and again, his 40 time isn't awful by any means, but it just means that you really have to be close to perfect with your technique, and he was pretty far away from perfect with his technique, which is kind of the more concerning issues of he's going to really have to improve. And so then let's talk a little zone, because that's something that could potentially be a factor, right? I mean, if you're not a good man corner, could you potentially be a good zone corner? Well, maybe. I mean, the Detroit Lions did just hire Aaron Glenn, who was a secondary coach for the Saints for a long time. So this is going to be his first tenure as a defensive coordinator. So he has experience helping out secondary players. And with the Saints, they did tend to play a lot of cover too. They like to play some zone. So getting two safeties back there, not making things easier on him, I could see that kind of masking the speed a little bit. But the issue was basically there are some concerns with zone as well. Right here, it's a cover 3 zone, so he's going to be at the he's the one with the white circle. That's where he's supposed to cover, but you can obviously break in if you want to. There's sort of a quick slant route over the middle. That's where this throw is going to go to, but just watch Okudah. So right when this play starts, you're going to notice that Okudah at this point is kind of mid taking a step back, right? He's starting to take a step back. There is sort of a throwing lane right now. The throw is going to come very closely, but Okudah sees this and kind of wants to quickly get over there. But watch what happens. He just falls straight on the ground. And to me, what I see there, and I could be wrong, but what it looks like to me is that he's trying to move his feet forward when his feet aren't planted. Like, this seems like a very simple fix, is just make sure you get your feet all the way back and then start running forward. You can't step forward when both of your feet are in front of your body. You have to, that's not how that works. You have to get your feet back, get your balance back, and then move forward. And I've seen this a few times where he's not great at really knowing exactly when to step forward. Richard Sherman was maybe the greatest ever at being able to do this, of knowing exactly how to get your foot back and then jump forward. Just little technique things like that. That's promising maybe, because he could end up being actually pretty good at that if you just sort of coach him up. And you also have something like this, where what's going to happen on this play is, once again, this is going to be cover 3, which, listen, if what the Lions end up doing is the same thing that the Saints did, which is a lot of cover 2 and quarters coverage, well, then this becomes a completely different conversation, or at least a slightly different conversation, because there is a difference between being a cover 2 zone corner and a cover 3 zone corner. But nevertheless, it's still worth talking about. I'm sure they will play some cover 3 no matter what. And you see the route that he's probably going to have to pay attention to on this one. It's a good route against this type of coverage. There's no shame in a corner losing against this type of route, because it is a good route against this coverage. But watch how right when this play starts, notice how Okudah, he's kind of bailing right here. He's facing basically the complete wrong way. And it's fine if you want to do this, but if you are going to be running like this, you actually do kind of want to have your hips turned up a little bit towards the middle of the field, but you got to be further down than the player you're trying to cover. So further down is in further towards the sideline. Down for us, which is to, the offense's left. Because as you see right now, I mean, the receiver is turning, but Okudah just can't even see him. So you can't react if you can't even see him. So again, little things like this, he just needs to be a little bit better on. And that is, this could factor in, rookie with who limited playing time with the Detroit Lions, no preseason, all that stuff probably does factor in. But like, as you see, he gets, completely burned. I mean, that's wide open. And it's not a skill thing. That's just he needs to learn exactly a little bit more technique. So little things like that are a big way that he could improve. But it does still come back to, well, the main thing he has to do is get faster, which you just can't really do. So there is still that concern, and that concern bothers me a lot. And again, it kind of goes to show the situation where if he was in a better spot where he could kind of be coached up and be put in a position to succeed instead of put in a position to fail, well, things could potentially go a lot easier for him. So that's kind of my main point, is there are some legit concerns to have. There's also some reason for optimism, and maybe the best reason for optimism for the Lions is they seem to be completely approaching this as a rebuild season. They obviously would like to win. They're not expecting to win a Super Bowl this year. Just try and see what you have with your players, with a different coaching staff, and after next year, put Okudah in a lot of situations, try to coach him up, and if he's still not getting better, well, then you'll know. So they'll probably know what Okudah is after this year, which is the bright spot, but interesting to talk about now. So that's what I think about him. What do you guys think? Let me know in the comments below. Always love hearing from you. And of course, as always, thanks for watching.